My name's Billy Reeves. Welcome to Brentford Football Club, Jersey Road Media Centre. Joining me, the co-directors of football at Brentford Football Club. On the left of your screen, Phil Giles. On the right of your screen, Rasmus Ankersen. Thank you very much for coming down, gentlemen. It's nice to meet you. A pleasure to meet you.
No.
First and foremost, I want to ask both of you to define the role. What is a co-director of football, Phil?
Well, I guess the role of director of football is fairly well established now. After discussions with Matthew, we decided that it would be best to have two people in the role because our skill sets, our backgrounds are quite different. I don't think we're not the first school to do that. Sheffield Wednesday did something similar. They have a panel, if you like. Glenn Roder's on that panel. So we decided that with so much to do and potentially something just trying to do something a little bit different, maybe, that it would be best to have two people in that role. And so I guess it's a skills-based thing. I guess.
Yeah. How are you going to divide the duties then, Rasmus?
Phil will be responsible for sports science, recruitment, for analytics, and I will be responsible for the coaching side. So obviously there will be a lot of overlap between the two roles. So we have to have great communication. But I think it's a great structure in terms of taking the ideas we have and translating them to decision making on the pitch.
It's known essentially in this country as the European model. So my next question must be to both of you: is that will you and Matt have any influence on picking the team?
No, that's for the head coach, and he has the sole responsibility for team selection. We may offer our opinions, but in the end, he's the guy in charge of that.
Okay. And Phil, who is the new head coach?
We're still in the process. We hope we'll be able to make an announcement in not too long, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay. What attributes are you both looking for in Brentford FC's new head coach? You first, Rasmus.
I think he's got to have great man management skills. I mean, one of the great things about the team that got fifth this year is that there was a great team spirit, and we definitely want to keep that. So he's got to be able to build a great team spirit and be able to work with the players on a psychological level, individually and collectively. Then obviously we really emphasize that he is open-minded, he is willing to take some risks, he is a believer in some of the ideas that the club will bring to the table and Matthew will bring to the table. So it's a combination of a few things that we've been looking for in this process.
Is someone that's worked within this system before? Ideally,
but I think for me it is that we got a really good group of staff, not just players but behind the scenes, and it's important that what we don't have is someone who comes in and wants to change all of that or impact it. We want to keep what's strong already in place, and for him to come into that existing setup rather than starting anew with everything.
Matthew has stressed, he said this to me, he said this in interviews, that it's a long-term plan. So how would both of you judge the new head coach? Is it on points? Is there expectation to finish higher than next season? How will the next coach be judged?
He will be judged on whether he is able to implement the ideas and the concepts that the clubs want him to implement. He will also be judged on a bunch of performance measures, and then obviously we think that the most important things that he will be measured on is also what have the highest correlation with the success in the league table, hopefully.
Yeah, but you've said this before in interviews in Denmark that doesn't necessarily mean points.
We think that sometimes the league table lies. There's one of the reasons is that there's not a lot of goals in football compared to, say, for example, basketball. This means that randomness play a bigger role in a low-scoring sport like football. So that's why we think it's super important to look beyond the result and understand that, especially in football, you can perform very well and still lose, or you can win and don't not perform very well. So obviously both things are important, but we strongly believe that it's very important to look beyond the results.
Phil, just dovetailing into that, you've worked for Matthew for a number of years at Match, but what does Rasmus mean by random nature?
Good question. It's probably best to explain by way of an example, I guess. So if you follow German football this year, if you saw the league table halfway through the season, Dortmund were bottom of that league table, and I don't think anyone would seriously argue that Dortmund were the worst team in the German top division. So it's quite possible to have a long stretch of time where results aren't in sync with general performances, and I guess Matthew is somebody who, having that background, is quite strong at understanding that concept.
Okay, what's the coaching structure going to be like? If it's a head coach in charge of coaching the team, is there going to be one or two coaches? I know obviously we're all chuffed to see Kevin O'Connor's going to be part of that setup. How do you see the coaching staff set up?
The head coach will probably bring one assistant, and the third coach is going to be someone who will be employed by the club, and he will also be responsible for, we call him head of football philosophy and player development. Okay. So he will be the guy responsible for describing the way we want to play.
So that'd be like a conduit between the board and the coach.
He'll be one of his most important jobs will be to create the connection between the first team and the under 21 squad and the academy. So so it's a very important role, and we also in the process of finding the right person for that job. Then obviously Lee Carsley and Kevin O'Connor will be responsible for the under 21, and Ossie is the academy director. So that's.
I guess Kevin is an important figure when it comes to continuity as well.
Very important. One of the first things that we did, having got ourselves at the desk, so to speak, was speak to Kevin and clarify his role and make sure that we were working long term with Kevin. He has his formal responsibility will be with Lee in the development squad, but I think we see him as somebody who can help across the whole of the club, really, at any level, academy, the development squad, but also helping when the new head coach comes in to integrate him and help him understand what Brentford's all about and the existing staff, and he's a really important person.
Okay, a question from Paul Haynes. Ins and outs. Have you a list of transfer targets, and can you tell us about departures?
Obviously, we have a list of players we are interested in that we think can strengthen the team. We want to try and create a bit bigger squad this year than last season. There was it took a lot of resource from players because the squad wasn't that big. So we think with a long season with 46 games and cup games as well, it's important to have enough players. So we're looking for at our targets at the moment. Obviously we cannot mention any specific names, but it's work in progress.
But Phil, the current team did very well. It's been made clear by the club that the current squad are all going to be looked at. It's only Tommy and Nick that were on short-term contracts anyway. So presumably the head coach will want to have a look at the current plans.
Absolutely. We met the players before they went on their break, and we said to everyone, 1st of July when the players come back, that it'll be the head coach who's wants to look at everyone and make those decisions for himself, and not for myself or Rasmus to preempt it. So that was the message to everyone. I think everyone was happy to hear that, and looking forward to coming back and working again with the new guy.
Bit of a classic from Matthew Hawkins, who sent this question, is targets. Have targets been set for this season? What do you expect position in the table wise?
I think being fifth last season. A natural next step would be to retire, and then it's obviously for promotion. But I mean, it's a long season. There's a lot of teams and only 3 promotion spots, so we cannot guarantee anything, unfortunately. But I think the whole club is focused on trying to do better than last season. The opposite would not be satisfactory. I mean, Phil and I, we are in a position where we need to take care of the long-term interest of the club, and even if we don't not successful promoting this season, then hopefully we will be in a position where the club is stronger and we have a bigger chance the following season.
Okay, and what's your view of that, Phil? Because obviously you and I have spoken about this very briefly today, and I've spoken to this about Matthew. It's now a case of managing expectations, because it's been such an astonishing rise for the club under Matthew to finish 5th. The club is essentially stronger than it's been since the war. So how about managing expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be strange if we weren't talking about things like promotion, having finished 5th and being in the playoffs, and we still went next season went, oh, we're not going to try and do that again. But I think it comes back to the earlier points we talked about in terms of the randomness in football. You know, what we've got to try and do is maximise the performance and hope that the good fortune goes our way and we're up there again. As long as we're all trying to maximise that performance, I think that's the most important thing.
Rasmus, you have a role at FCM, the club that Matthew owns or part owns in Denmark. Phil, you work for Smart Odds, Matthew's company. So how much time are you going to be able to devote to the job outside of your other responsibilities, Rasmus?
I'll keep my role in FC Midtjylland as a chairman. The role of being a chairman is not a full-time position. I lead through the sporting director there and 2 commercial guys. And in Brentford, my role will be much more operational. I will be a lot at the training ground and has more of a role to implement things rather than more than I have in FC Midtjylland. My role is also going to be to share knowledge and make sure that the specialists we bring in will be used in both clubs, and I think there are a lot of synergies for having 2 clubs under the same umbrella, and we gotta try and explore those synergies, and that's going to be my responsibility.
Yeah, we must talk about that in a minute. And Phil, obviously your role with Matthew is a little bit more simpatico. Are you going to be flitting between offices?
I'm full-time Brentford, really. It's my main focus. I'm not going to be focused on anything else other than working at the club, and I worked with Matthew for a long time, speak to him all the time, but this is my main focus now.
Okay. What happens if there's a conflict of interest between FCM and Brentford when it comes to a player, for example? If someone comes into your radar that you think may be good for either club, which one is he going to play for?
Well, that's in the end up for Matthew to decide. But I think and I feel we have a culture where people are really open-minded and where there will not. I don't think there will be a fight about that. We had obviously already situations where the same player could be interesting for both clubs, but I mean there's a lot of good players out there, so it's not that one player is gonna mess up the relationship between Midtjylland and Brentford.
Billy starts that. I think both clubs have different needs at different times as well. In terms of positions and the way they play, and also some players may look to come to England. Some clubs may look at the Champions League possibility at Midtjylland. So there's a lot going on. I think the chances of having a fight over a single player is remote.
A senior football journalist I spoke to recently, and I was giving it the whole Brentford fan. It's been stress tested in an amazing achievement of a club that size going to be playing the Champions League. And he or she rather sniffily answered, it's completely different in Denmark. It's a smaller league. It's not the same at all. The Championship is a much bigger deal. How would you answer that?
I think football is football. We think there are some inefficiencies in football, and in Midtjylland we have tried to exploit those inefficiencies some of the things we've done has been successful. Some of the things we've done hasn't worked out so well, and it'll be the same in Brentford, I guess. We will try things to see if we can get an advantage, and some of it will work, some of it will not work. But I think what's really important to stress is that the success in Midtjylland, the media obviously likes the story about big data and Matthew coming in and transforming the whole club, but there's a really strong foundation in Midtjylland. The success is built on 15 years of hard work and a great academy. Six of the starting 11 players in the last game when we won the gold were from the academy, so that's quite impressive. I mean, there's a saying that it takes 15 years to create an overnight success, and I think that's Midtjylland is a good proof of that.
Okay, I understand. The other thing that we hear in press boxes up and down the country since this happened in February and your appointment was made public recently is from the wider football community who think this is a very unusual appointment because neither of you two are football men. You've not played the game. How would you answer that criticism?
That was something I thought a little bit about that in terms of what was required in the role. We don't have to kick any footballs in the role. We have to communicate. We have to set a vision. We have to manage a little bit. We have to speak to agents, encourage players to come here, set out what Brentford's about, So really, having not played, I don't see that as being something as a hindrance. Personally.
Much has obviously been made of the statistical analysis role. Paul Martin has asked that question. Much has been made of the statistical approach to running the football side, Paul says. And then he asks, can you explain in simple terms how this will work? Yeah. Without obviously letting light into magic.
Thanks. It's there's loads of data being collected in football. If you think about, some companies collect data on the position of the ball and where it is and who's got it on the field and so on and so forth. The tracking data that's installed at many grounds now. There's players where GPS and training. There is testing of players. In terms of it just creates this huge amount of data, and it just takes it's a lot of effort to go through and try and actually make sense of that. And it's just something I think that we'd like to dedicate some resource to actually try and make sense of it. And there's people who were also not football men who just in their own spare time because they love football, try and have a little look at this stuff and can something be made of it? Can we draw some interesting conclusions? And that's something which if we're sensible about it, and by that I mean we aren't letting it dictate everything, then it's something where potentially we can build it in one or two places. But really, you can't replace what we might call the traditional elements of football. Strong players, good coaching, strong backroom team can't be replaced with statistical analysis. That just doesn't work. It's something which augments what's already in place.
Yeah. But other clubs do this. It's not unique to Brentford.
No, I mean the data has been in football for a long time. It's not breaking news, but we think that the next era is going to be about not data, but more giving meaning to that data in a more intelligent way. And this is where we think that we have some great ideas that can make a difference.
Your book and Moneyball, to a lesser degree, have spoken about how that means that you can get more from resources as well as that, because obviously the club hasn't got the spending power of a Manchester City or even a Stoke City. So is that part of the reason?
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean if you can't outspend the competition, you have to outthink them, and Brentford is not a club who is in a position where we can win by just spending more money than the competition. So we need to think smarter in some ways, and statistical analysis is just one way we can do that. There's a lot of potential competitive edges that we gotta explore, and the data and statistical analysis is one of them.
Okay, I just want to go back to the head coach briefly, if I may, and probe you further about that. The new head coach, why will the new head coach not have final say over the makeup of the squad? Why do you think it's a good idea that they can't veto signings, Phil?
That's a good question. I would say that the head coach is going to have it's a real strong role in the recruitment side of things still. It's not, there's no change there. In particular, like any football club, we have a recruitment department. The head coach sets out his requirements that he's looking for the positions. The recruitment department goes away and finds some candidates, narrows it down using whatever means it can, and then it presents those options back, and then it comes down to a group discussion involving myself and Rasmus, head coach Matthew, and anyone else really who has an opinion in terms of whether a player should be signed or not, an approach made. It's really, it's none of us, myself, Rasmus, we don't have a veto in terms of deciding definitively we do this or we do that. So it's about setting a philosophy that we want it to be about opinions, and for everyone to be able to contribute to that and make a decision, because it's never so straightforward as to say yes, this player is perfect, or no. There's always compromises to be made financially and about the player as well.
Yeah. You touched on this briefly, but isn't there a danger that you're turning players into robots? Where does the emotion come into this, Rasmus?
Football is a very emotional game. That's why we go and watch football, and we're definitely not going to take that out of the game. But I think in decision-making processes, we want a better balance between emotions on one side and objective evidence on the other. And where football, generally speaking, probably is very much on this side with emotional decision making, we still want to keep the best from that, but we want to bring some more objective evidence, some data into the decision making process. So it's not just going to be a revolution where everything will be stats and data driven. That's not what we're talking about, but we want it to play a bigger role.
Okay. What happens if this all goes horribly wrong? Okay, let's say that the first, if a team wins 5 games in a row, they're the greatest team in the world. If a team loses 5 games in a row, everyone's going to be the whole wider world, not only Brentford fans, but the wider world are going to be looking at Brentford in a way that they would have normally looked at them under the microscope. The team doesn't come out of the blocks. It's going to be a new system, a new management structure. Are you going to revert back to the old model, or are you going to stick with this one?
We got to stick with it.
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5 games will, no matter if we win or lose, will not be enough to evaluate if this is effective or not. So we definitely got to stick to it. There's no doubt about that. As I said before, football is very result oriented, and therefore it's important to sometimes understand that you can have good process and bad outcomes for a short while. But if we have the right measures for looking at if we're at the right track, then that helps us. We have something to hold on to, and I think we have a process like that.
Finally, from me, then, thanks very much for joining us. A soft question, I think, to give you the opportunity to sell the club as product. I'm assuming, would I be right in assuming, both of you, that we are going to expect the same brand of philosophy, the same pass and move, the same sparkling football that we saw this season?
Well, we're not coaching the team, but I hope so. We haven't gone out to find a head coach who's going to come in and change it radically and hasn't got a track record of playing, I guess, the sort of football that we want to see, the fans will want to see, and there won't be any long ball football, I'm sure. So I'm sure it'll be pleasing.
I guess it's a general theme for this discussion that yes, we got to really work hard to keep the best from last season, and then bring a few more ideas into play, and hopefully take it to another level. But yeah, we really want to meet the fans' expectations on entertainment as well.
Okay, and if you see me lurking around with a microphone, happy to speak to me.
Very much.
Thank you very much indeed, gents.